I call this meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Northfield Public School Board. Today is Monday, August 22nd, 2022, and the time is 6 p.m. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded. The recording of this meeting will be posted on the district website as soon as possible. Before we get started, I'd like to thank members of the public for attending this school board business meeting to observe the work being done on behalf of the school district stakeholders. We appreciate the time you took to be here this evening. All right, Dr. Hellman, we have some items in the table file.
Yes, we have several items in the table file this evening, including some personnel items, appointments, increase, decrease, change in assignment, some leaves of absence, retirements, resignations. We have a gift agreement. And then Director of Special Services, Cheryl Hall, is here to talk about a creative solution to a staffing dilemma. We have been struggling to fill a vacancy for a school psychologist position within the district. She is here to propose we hire a 0.5 FTE school psychometrist. That's a new term for the district. During that portion of the agenda, Cheryl will explain it. She'll explain how it fits in with the overall staffing process. We're not asking tonight for you to approve it, but we're bringing it forward to you to keep that process moving so we can be prepared to begin the school year.
Good. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented? Moved by Amy, second by Jeff. Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Do we have any public comments today? Okay, so we will move on past the public comment portion of our meeting as we don't have anybody signed up. Okay, we're on to announcements and recognitions.
Yes, we have one announcement this evening. I just wanted to share with the community that the filing period for the Board of Education election on November 8th did conclude on August 16th. And we do have 6 candidates who filed for 3 board seats. Incumbents Tom Broniak and Jeff Quinnell have filed for re-election, along with newcomers Ben Miller, Robert Coleman, Ricky Antonio Livingston, and Jenny Nelson. So these are the 6 candidates who will be on the ballot for the Northfield School District Board of Education election on November 8th. That's the only announcement that I have this evening.
Perfect. Board members, any other announcements or recognitions? Great. All right, we're on to items for discussion and reports, and we do have 6 items today as there was a new one in the table file. First, we have our elementary schools continuous improvement plan. Welcome principals, Nancy Antwine, Sam Richardson, and Scott Sanis.
I'd like to thank you for this opportunity and a chance for us to share the things that we've been working on and some of the challenges that we have before us. As you know, we're coming off of 2 strange years that we've never experienced before. I know in my lifetime, I've never experienced anything like the past 2 years. However, as we come out of this, we do understand that we have a lot of opportunities in front of us, and our kids need us now more than ever. Was on a panel last week talking with Education Week about what do we need to do to make sure that our teachers and students come back safe and secure, and that's both physically and emotionally. And that's going to be a big job for all of us to undertake. And yet at the same time, I know we're ready for that because we want what's best for our students. So therefore, we need to also take care of our staff who take care of our students. So that we do know. Our vision, obviously, we want to create great citizens for our community and for our country. And so our vision is right along those lines because that's exactly what we want is our kids to be the best that they can be. Under this strategic plan commitments, we're looking at all those areas, including people, communication, learner outcomes, equity, partnerships, and stewardship. We'll continue to work on in those areas through all the things that we do over the course of the year.
The planning process that we have undertaken is set on continuous improvement and defining those shared goals and aligning those with the district's strategic plan and those commitments that Nancy just shared. And also our hope in this continuous improvement plan process is that it aligns all of our efforts, and all the stakeholders who care so much about our kids are working together towards helping those students grow as people and as learners. Tonight, Nancy, Scott, and I are reporting for the elementary schools, but the number of people who have contributed to this plan is great. And so we have leadership teams from our school district, elementary teams, and then also other district leaders who have helped with this. First, we're going to review our goals from last year. And coming back from a year where we were not in person for the entire year, we had some really special leaders from each school building who are passionate about literacy meet together in the summer for a work team. And they were looking at past and current results for assessments in the area of literacy. At the same time, we were adopting a new assessment tool, STAR, and we had traditionally used the MAP test, which I'm sure we've reported to you in the past about the results from those assessments. And the team really wanted to focus on the foundational skills of reading that help lead to overall reading success. And so this year, I'm proud to say that while we didn't make our goals in all of the grade levels, they were lofty goals. 80% of students meeting district standards in each of these foundational skill areas. And I think that was an aggressive goal. And I think it was something that helped stretch us to think more deeply about how we help students from kindergarten, where there's a very different skill set that is needed, all the way up to 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, where they're really focusing on reading fluently. As we'll talk a little bit more, we learned a lot from this new endeavor in the area of reading.
Good evening. The next goal that we were looking at is our math goal. Oops, I went a little. There we go. Was our math goal, and a summer work group last year, a district math team came together and actually created this goal. And the goal is fact fluency, and without really good fact fluency, not all the math concepts come to you as easily. So that's the focus for this year. We did not meet the 80%. I think we had 2 grade levels that did, kindergarten and was it 5th grade? And this is something that we're going to continue to work on as we move forward this year. So that goal is rolling forward. We have work groups that have established how we're going to work the fact fluency into the curriculum, into the math block, and we're going to continue to pursue this particular goal.
And for our social emotional learning goal, we know how important that piece is. Obviously, we were looking at our SABRS data, and we wanted to make sure that we were looking at our students who are at risk. And we did not meet that goal. And at the same time, I think we were still plummeting on that one and needing the help of everyone to actually reach into that goal. We do know that in order for our kids to be successful academically, their other needs must be met too. And that includes their social emotional needs. We also know that social emotional learning is thinking about the competencies that underscore our ability to be available to learn and obviously available to teach. Those 5 competencies are self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. We also know that our kids have a better chance of being successful if they feel safe, if they feel empowered, and also if they feel that they belong. And that wraps into our anti-racism goal. If we can have all of our students feel like they're empowered to learn, if they're safe, both academically and physically and emotionally, and if they feel like they belong to our system, I think we can cut down on our anti-racism in our district. We've got goals out there, and I think we can achieve them. But one of the things that I've done a lot of work this summer with our National Race and Equity Task Force is looking at that piece of not blaming people for where they're at, but taking us all from the point where we're at and moving us forward. We're not going to gain any ground by coming in blaming people for their ethnicity. And that includes, we can't sit here and blame people for being white. That's not going to get us to a discussion point where we need to be. If we can start from that discussion point of what we have in common, what we want to work toward, and then treating everyone like they're a person of value, recognizing the assets in others, we can move forward. But again, we don't gain anything by blaming anyone for where they're at, because last I checked, when we were born, none of us had the opportunity to check which box we wanted. We didn't get to check that box that says, I think I'd like blue eyes. I would think, oh, let's see, I'd like a little olive skin, but not too light or not too dark. We don't get to do that. We are what we are. And we have our parents to thank for who we are, and we should all see the values and assets in that rather than seeing the deficits in that area. And I think if we can get all of our students and all of our adults to recognize that, we'll be far better people than where we have been. So that's what we're going to continue to work on our anti-racism goal, and recognizing that social emotional learning it all comes all together there.
The next goal was the community partnerships, and we went a year without having any volunteers in our schools when we went through COVID. And I think the key takeaway here from the community partnerships is we were overjoyed last year to have, parents, grandparents, community members, college students, high school students back in the schools with us volunteering and being role models for our students. And we will continue to partner with the community and do as much as we can, because we help each other out in a lot of ways. So we'll continue to move forward with this community partnership.
Two other goals that are very important to our work are the family and employee engagement goals. Both of these really are heavily reliant upon great communication. So family engagement goal, our work was to help address a need for parents to hear positive communication about their students and also to be informed about what their students are learning. The family conferences that we held in the fall before school started, we had almost all of our families, 90+% of the families, able to attend those either in person, or occasionally we did leverage technology, which is something we learned during the pandemic, is that we could use Zoom and other tools to connect with families when there was distance. We used postcards to share information about students with families, and each school had a slightly different procedure for that. They were able to send notes home to students, and we could track when students had been notified, and that was a real powerful goal for us. And we could celebrate by saying we did that. We communicated with all of those families 100%. The employee engagement goals revolved around helping provide feedback to our staff members, and to make sure that we were able to have robust dialogue about what's going well in the school, and or maybe there are areas for improvement or more support might be needed. And so our goal was to have rounding conversations where 10-minute conversations where staff members are able to share what's going well, maybe areas that they could see for improvement, things that they might need to help them do their job well. And then also it gives a chance for kudos. Who are those people, those rock stars that are helping them every day? Or maybe there's colleagues who they notice are really standing out in their field and they want them to be recognized. So one of the neat things about the employee engagement process is we've had a few different examples, and the principals have noted where staff members are using the rounding process with others that they work with, or even with students. And so the trickle down of recognizing others for their positive performance and figuring out ways to build in feedback loops has been a real positive out of this goal. Some of the key reflections from this past year we have touched on, but I think with the mixed results from the math and reading goals, it really told us that we can learn from that, and in the efforts that the work teams have undergone this summer, they're looking at retooling not the goals, but the strategies to reach those goals. And so refining strategies, looking at pacing charts. And I know on Thursday morning, the leaders from those teams at each building will be sharing with staff how to implement some of those strategies or what the pacing might be for those strategies. So we're encouraged by that. Also, I should note that a grant that allows Northfield teachers to learn more about how to teach the foundations of reading, the letters training. Over 50 staff members are enrolled in that program. And what we hear back is very positive about what they're learning about the science of reading. And Hope Langston has helped coordinate that, and Alicia Clary as well. So we'll continue to have the reading and the math goals at the forefront, and we'll continue to learn more about our students and what needs they have and how we can meet those better. And I think the social emotional component with the SABRS goal, certainly we learned a lot during the pandemic about where students were at, how they were responding in the time of being separate, in the time of returning to school. And I think one of the pieces that we learned as a district team, and each school has a problem-solving team or a student support team that was able to notice trends. And one of the things we were hearing is that student voice was often missing. We asked teachers to do some ratings to identify if students were needing more support. Some of the behaviors, some of the emotions are not always evident as you walk through the halls or a student sitting in the classroom. And so the new goal for this next year that you'll see is really looking at how can we bring more student voice in to understand how we can support students with their social, emotional, behavioral health. And I think this is something we all agree is very important now and in the future.
So we look at our family engagement goals, and we look at also, lessons that we learned from the past few years. We know that we need our parents as our partners. Our parents in our Northfield School District are fantastic partners. They do an amazing job of making sure that the majority of our students are coming in ready to learn. But we have to continue. That's not something that we'll never reach that goal entirely. We always need to continue working on this goal of making sure that we are including our parents, because they are so important. From just the little conversations that you have, making sure that you have continue to keep yourself open when you're out in public, making sure that you're having conversations with parents so they know they can approach you. I've got some parents that come in and say, "Oh, I'm so sorry to bother you." It's like, bother me? You're my job. So, and reminding parents that you are my job, you're not a bother. This school is your school. So you can always come talk about your child at your school. Please come on in. So, making sure that parents always feel like they're welcome, always feel like their opinions matter. And if they are, or let's put it this way, if I'm unable to speak their language of choice, it's up to me to find someone who can help me understand what the conversation is and how to communicate. So as not, again, that blame piece is not even, it should never ever be there, but we need to continue working on that one. But also, telling their kids, picking up the phone and talking to parents about when their kids are doing really, really well. It's one of my favorite conversations to have, because first thing you get a parent on the phone, they hear it's the principal, and of course they go into the shock to begin with, and it's like, no, really, I want to talk to you about your child. This is what your child did today, and it's so rewarding. And there's so many opportunities if we just take the time to make those phone calls. We've got so many wonderful things that happen on a regular basis, and what happens when their child gets home from school that day. Well, first of all, it might be your principal called today. Do you want to? I wonder why that happened, and then they can go into why that really took place. So it is a lot of fun. We'll continue working on our anti-racism goal, because we really want to make sure that all of our students feel like they belong here in our Northfield Public School District, because they do belong. We all belong. And we want our kids to know that. And at the same time, it has to be shown to them on a regular basis. Employee engagement, like I said, we're going to continue working on rounding and getting feedback from our staff, but we have to start this fall off with letting our staff know how important it is to actually for us to look after their needs as well, because these past 2 years have not been easy on teachers whatsoever. And we could see it in their eyes, especially at the end of the school year. And so I know the work that it looks like a mountain in front of us and at the same time, it's so worthwhile because our kids deserve that and our teachers deserve that because our teachers work hard. And during the month of June, July, and August, most people are joking about, yeah, those are the months teachers take off. Yeah, right. They were in the building every single month. Every time I turn around, the teachers are there. That's because they care. They're coming in to work. Are they getting paid for that time? No, they're not getting paid for that time. It doesn't matter though, because they want to be prepared for the students that are coming in and they want to make sure they have everything ready. Can I get my class list in June? It's like, I think you need to have a little breather here first of all, but they're in there, they're setting up their rooms. They're getting everything just has to be just so. And it's pretty neat to see. So if you think our teachers are taking those summer months off, they're not. They're getting ready for the work before them. So that's why it's important for us to, again, engage with all of our employees.
Right. Now to turn the page to our goals for this coming school year. Reading and math goals are basically the same as this past year. We're focusing on benchmarks for fluency and moving forward with those fluency goals in both math and literacy. SEL, we want 100% of eligible students to participate in the new SSIS screener in the fall and the spring. We will have our MTSS teams that are doing a lot of work this summer, have the leadership teams identify a process for responding to that screener data. All three schools, we're excited about this. All three schools will have community school sites now. And with the addition of Spring Creek and Bridgewater joining the community school bandwagon, I should say. 75% of our students, our goal is to have at least 75% of our students attend at least one community school event. And then 25% of our students meet the MDE target of 50+ hours in the school year from September through, October through May. Our anti-racism goal, it's in the document. We're working on looking at that again, but I'm going to go over that just real quick here for you. 100% of our staff will complete a self-reflection tool about equity practices in their specific area. A list of culturally appropriate resources will be provided to grade level teachers to use with students during social emotional learning time. And then staff and students will address 100% of racist behaviors, comments within one school day, and we'll work together to stand up and support others. And I know if we do have incidents, Sam and Nancy and I are on the horn with each other, discussing how we're going to handle it and how we need to handle it as swiftly as possible and as appropriately as possible. So we will continue to do that. Our family engagement goal, we have one family engagement goal. And the family engagement goal is I regularly receive feedback from school staff on how well my child is learning. That's one of the survey questions. And that was one of our lowest areas. So we're going to work to increase that area and give feedback to parents. And then our employee engagement goal, the survey question was, my principal supervisor consults me about decisions that affect my job. And we're going to look at that one too and meet with our staff and figure out how we can do that. And we'll do that during our results rollout, which happens, I think, next Tuesday during workshop week for all of our schools.
So we've listed in our report a number of different strategies. I think in some years when we've presented to the board, there have been many new products or initiatives that have been brought in to address an area of need. I think this year, hopefully you've seen the theme of our presentation is as we're resetting some of the work that we are doing this year, we're resetting, also some of the processes and not so much changing up what we're doing, but how we're doing that. And so as you can see, we really are lifting up those work teams in that process. We also had work teams that engaged in planning for how we, as a district, conference with families. We had work teams for how we do our PLC structure, and we had work teams for just what that workshop week looks like for teacher preparation and learning. And then these reading and math teams and SEL teams, there's a team for each of those groups. The SEL area, tomorrow we have a district meeting for the MTSS district process, and working together to develop a more robust system that can extend from E to 12 and take some of those new pieces that we're learning. A new screener, for example, this year. That's great to have new data, but how do we respond? And Scott said that will be a big component of our work together. Family engagement, as we talked about, leveraging those technology tools, and also having some new formatting where our conferences involve longer periods of time and allow for different touch points, hopefully at the right time, at real time, and not just one time, in the fall and one time in the spring, but the technology tools. Talking Points is one that has been a really powerful way. We're finding more and more families. I had a family in the office the other day and asked them how they would like to be communicated with, what works best, and they didn't hesitate, text. And so that's not something that pre-COVID I think was my go-to. And now with the Talking Points app, we can text in many, many languages, and we can receive those texts translated back to us. And so that two-way communication that Nancy mentioned, it's incumbent on us to make that happen for families if English is not their first language or their preferred language. So the family conference piece will be big, and our focus will really be on figuring out how to help families get more information about how their students are learning. The anti-racism goal, you can see there, the self-reflection tool will help us see where some next steps will be, and then also culturally appropriate materials. The books that we have, the posters that we have, do all of our students see themselves in the books that they're reading, in the images that they see in the school. That's going to be really important. And then essential conversations like Scott talked about, when there's an incident or before there's an incident, how can we help everyone be equipped to provide a safe and inclusive environment? And then employee engagement, Scott mentioned real briefly, how do you help everyone be able to have input into the decision-making process? And we have looked at our different models, leadership teams at each building with site council. We have building teams that are looking at specific areas of our school improvement efforts, and then each individual also with that rounding conversation process, has an opportunity to give good feedback. And a lot of times when they're living it, they have really good ideas to help our schools. We have a really talented staff in Northfield. I'm really impressed and proud to be part of that team. So. All right. On behalf of Scott and Nancy, we wanted to thank you for listening to our presentation, and we wanted to open the floor for questions.
Well, thank you to the three of you for being here tonight and giving us such a thorough presentation. We really appreciate you. Board members, do you have any questions or comments on the presentation? Tom?
Yeah, thanks for your report. So you're talking about student voices. How are you going to, you're going to like talk to the kids, or how are you going to get their voices?
So the screener that we're going to be using this year is a new screener for us, and that will allow students to actually give their input on what's going on with their social emotional well-being. So that's the part. We haven't used it yet, and so we're looking forward to using it where they'll be able to indicate, areas where they need some help. Before it was the teachers, looking and trying to decipher how kids were doing. This way, the students can tell us, and that's going to be huge. I'm looking forward to seeing the data on that.
Terrific. Good question. Jeff?
Yeah, thanks for your presentation. Wishing you for a good year, and kids are kids, and have some fun. And we're coming out of where we've been, and now it's just good to see that you just keep a good attitude and engage the kids. And I thank you for your report.
Thank you.
Amy?
Well, I also want to thank you all for your report. I have a question about your math and reading goals, because I think it's great to have aspirational goals, but then I look at where you were this year and I realized you had wide fluctuation in what you attained. And so then, well, I think your goals are on paper look good, but I wonder if for some grades, they might be less attainable and whether that could be discouraging to the teachers. And I just want you to talk about that and also in general, if there's any reason why some grades might have done less well on, like, I know the math score was at 41% met it, and you're literally doubling that next year. And was that because of COVID? Was that because it's just that cohort that isn't as strong? Any sort of insights you have to the variability I would be interested in.
Well, I will just offer that we have teachers that and leaders in Hope and Alicia who looked very carefully at the data and to help us address what you're talking about. And so the aspirational piece is real. I think the encouraging piece for us was that the work teams processed the data and our teacher leaders felt like it was important to have this be our goal one more time. And I agree with you that if it does not seem reasonable that, you know, a goal can be that feeling of overwhelmed. But I think also there's a number of process pieces as well when you're taking student data. Very small things. An example would be when students are developmentally ready for multiplication and division. For example, in our math fact fluency, the actual problems that are presented make a big difference to different students. And I do think we see some gaps in students that maybe were there prior to COVID and we didn't measure that as carefully. There might be some that were due to some disruptions to learning. And I think the goal this year is to refine the process for how we assess and understand that better, and also be a little bit more systematic or have a little bit more cohesive plan for how we introduce the strategies as well. So there was great motivation to run this back again.
And on top of that, some of the things that we've learned specifically during our letters training is how important it is for students to see the teacher's face when learning how to read, especially like learning the difference between a B and a D. How do you learn that difference without being able to see how the teacher's mouth is? You know, that B versus a D, but when you're just listening to them without seeing that person, it's really hard to discern the difference between those two. So that's one of those things where, you know, we're looking at our current third graders. This will be their first quote unquote normal year. And so when you look at, you know, our progress from before, we have a lot of gaps. And those are the ones we hope to fill. But like I said, through the letters training, it has been extremely valuable to learn that, okay, so here we've had 2 years with masks on and trying for the students to try to learn to read without being able to see the face of the teacher in front of them is very challenging. And I would say when I look at the student data, I'm actually very impressed because some days I look at the kids, it's like, oh my goodness, there's no way that you should do this well. And they do. So I guess it might be my perspective on it, but I look at this as an opportunity, not something that's critical, but I think our kids are going to catch up. But thank you for asking.
Thank you. Anyone else? Corey.
I'll echo everyone else. Thank you for your presentation. The follow-up on Amy's question concerning last year's goals for math and reading. I appreciate the aggregate. It paints a broader picture, but I'm curious if there's parity among all the buildings, or if there's some grades that performed better at other schools than others that you could take from and apply. I'm just kind of curious about the school performance overall for each individual building instead of an aggregate of all three.
Sure. And normally we do have our PLCs working together across the district so they can learn from other people. And of course, these last 2 years, we haven't been able to have that. And so that is definitely an area of deficit in terms of our learning as professionals. And at the same time, looking down the road here, I can see a lot of sharing going on. You know, wow, I see, you know, with your fourth graders over here, you're knocking it out of the park in terms of your reading skills. What are you doing? And like I said, knowing that we've had so many teachers attend the letters training, I know that the reading strategies are going to be shared like wildfire this year because they are that important. I am actually taking the letters training myself, just so I have a foundational understanding of what the teachers are learning. Plus, I mean, if I become a better reading teacher myself, who knows? The sky's the limit. But at the same time, I think that we have that opportunity to learn from each other, and I'm hoping we do much more of that.
Thank you. And then concerning this year's goals, the goal of increasing the family engagement by 0.2 percentage points, what's that base number? Because if it's increasing from 1 to 1.2, that's not great, but.
That's on a 5-point scale, so it's not a percentage. It's, I'd have to go back and look at the raw number, but it's a 0.2 increase on a 5-point scale. And so that's a pretty substantial increase when you're talking about that.
That's helpful. Thank you.
I'd like to make one more point about the disaggregation of the school level data. We are not at all afraid. In fact, we routinely disaggregate and publish our data. We're very transparent. I hope that's something that you've seen from the presentation tonight. We own our data. Of course, we wish that the results from last year were better than what the numeric values represent. We also know that these past 2 years have been things where we've been caring far more for the basic needs of students than we ever had before. So we look at this as a spirit of sharing with you, hey, here's where we're at. We do not deny the data. We own it. You see actions for continuous improvement. The reason that we are not able to show you disaggregated data this evening has nothing to do with the people in front of us. It has all to do with the Minnesota Department of Education. We are not allowed to release, we have the data. We are not allowed to release that data publicly until, shocking, the state fair. Because that's when they will start to give us, they will start publishing that data next week. So we are prepared by grade level to show and disaggregate the data, to share the wins across the system, to rally around those cohorts that might need additional, an additional boost, if you will. But we need to have these school improvement plans in place before our teachers return, because we need to use every moment of the school year to achieve these goals. And when we are not allowed to publicly release that information until coinciding with our workshop, it's a problem. So this is the reason that you're seeing a lack of disaggregated goals from this group here tonight.
Yeah. No,
With all due respect to MD, sorry.
go ahead, no.
Thank you for the good report, and we celebrate your progress.
Thank you.
Very well, Julie.
So I always look forward to having this presentation, and you are such a strong team, the three of you, and the work that you do. So we're grateful. It's exciting for me to hear about letters training. You know, there was so much excitement going into the initial training, and that we have 50 teachers doing that. And kudos, Nancy, for being a part of that as well. And I'm just wondering, you know, training is still going on, but was there some things that were learned that were able to sort of inform some of your plans as soon as this year, as you kind of approach your reading goals? And, you know, have you been able to affect any of your plans with the learnings from letters?
We don't have any of those goals within our specific site improvement goals. However, what I'm hearing from teachers as they're coming back is you hear it all the time. Well, I learned this and this and this and this, and I'm going to use that with my students this year. So I don't have any formal goals, but informally, they're talking about some things that will make a huge difference with their students, and I can't wait to see it in action.
Excellent, thank you.
Mhm.
And my other question, we're 2 weeks from tomorrow with welcoming kiddos back, wondering if the kindergarten registrations are looking as they were, or if we've been surprised and pleasantly surprised, or really enrollment in other grade levels that are maybe problematic or encouraging for any of the grade levels in the 3 buildings.
I have the smallest kindergarten group that I've had ever since I've been in the district. Currently, I have 63 kindergartners, and I don't remember a time when I've had below about 85. So, and then on the flip side, Sam.
Yeah, we several years ago had 3 kindergarten sections and approximately 62 students, and Brooke Bulfer in our office today said we're almost to 100 kindergartners. We have 5 very full sections on that end. So that's a very new and promising enrollment development there.
And we are at 72 kindergartners at Spring Creek. We had a small bubble go through 2 years ago. So it's our current second grade group. And they are actually a 3-section grade this year instead of 4 like all the other grades. We have seen our enrollment increase from last year to this year, just, students trickling into different grade levels. And I think we finished last year with, 445 students. And right now I think we're sitting at 461.
Great, thank you.
Tom.
Just one quick question. Were there any summer programs for the kids and how many students took advantage of that?
Oh, I don't know the exact numbers of the participants, but we did have our Summer Plus program that took place. And we also had obviously our kids that attended Kid Ventures as well. And so there were a lot of participants, but I don't have a number for you. But yes, we did have a Plus program going on in his building.
Yeah, it was in Greenville Parks building. We had the extended school year program for special education. And then we also had the Summer Plus program. And I believe it was 170 students approximately that were, so it was not a full school building, 400 or 500 students, but it was a busy place and it was really successful.
I think the one other program to reference would be Bridges to Kindergarten, which was last week. And we had, I want to say, record numbers.
129.
Yeah. So we had a morning class and an afternoon class at Spring Creek. I think we had 45 total of our 72 kindergartners show up for Bridges to K, which is really exciting.
In a rare occurrence, I need to retract a statement that I just made because I blamed the Department of Education for the disaggregation of data because so my apologies to Dr. Mueller and the department, but our goals are actually locally selected goals. So the disaggregation in this plan is our choice at this point, not the state's choice. So being a person of integrity, I have to take the blame back and be honest right here and right now so I can live with myself for the rest of the evening.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments or questions? Great. Thank you so much to the 3 of you. We appreciate you and we wish you a great year.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we have Principal Jeleno who will present the middle school continuous plan. Welcome.
Should add to their presentation. All right, I'm going to start. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me here. I always like presenting in front of this wonderful board. Some exciting news, some challenges we have and kind of the direction we're going. I will be totally transparent right off the bat that unlike most years, you will not see any kind of phenomenal, beautiful mountain pictures this year. I know. We did not take a trip and go hiking the mountains this summer. So I put my wife on notice saying, I can't present to the school board twice without any pictures. So let's book a trip now. So we'll have to, I think we're going to Teton. So you'll see that next time. So you don't get the nice pictures this year. So as we go through, I won't the first couple, the vision, as my elementary colleagues talked about, this is kind of our big view for the district, as all of you know. And then with the lens of that view, here's the areas that we really kind of hone in on and we work on. And the middle school is like all of our buildings and district as a whole, where we really try to set targets. And this is really where our work begins, is in these areas. And at the middle school specifically, we are committed to a continuous improvement model through our 4 cornerstones. And this is something that we designed pre-pandemic, and it's kind of gotten traction and it's worked well for us. But we really focus on those 4 cornerstones of pride, our social emotional learning, now AVID, which I'll be talking about this evening a little bit, and then career and college choice readiness. As a review, AVID, for those use, it stands for Achievement by Individual Determination. So that's what that stands for. So as we do a little bird walk, as we look at last year, how did we do? The middle school had some big wins, things I'm really proud of. So just as a reminder, we really focused on getting kids connected, work on that SEL, getting them back into school, feeling good about being at school, wanting to be there. And to our surprise, when we focused as a group, as an entire staff on that, did some pointed focus things throughout the year with students, voila, look what happens. So 90% of our students was the goal that self-report through surveys that we did 3 times a year, that teachers care about students. And as you can see, we reached that in all 3 areas, or all 3 times that we did the survey, which is pretty exciting. And then we took the survey question to another level. So this is a real general statement where, okay, teachers care about students, but then we asked, what about you? Do teachers care about you as an individual? And for me, this is the area that the year before, when we did the baseline, it was obviously really obvious that students felt, yeah, teachers care, but just not necessarily about me. And you can see that our baseline was at 40%. We wanted to bump that up to 70%. And as you can see, we knocked it out of the park. It really, obviously, we'd like to be in the 90s, but we exceeded what we were looking for. Students felt good about being there and individually. And to me, that was important. I will also point out, if you look in the fall, when we first came back, it was at 77, and it kept growing throughout the year. And that kind of makes a little sense. Students were excited to get back to school, but maybe a little bit nervous. But as they got into the year, they got more comfortable getting back into routines. Then our equity goal, we took those same goals, but we dug down a little bit deeper, and we looked at our students of color. And it's the same questions. First of all, we pulled out just our students of color, how they felt teachers viewed them as a whole. And as you can see here, we did again, an excellent job staying right around that mid 80s to 90%. So we did well in that area. But again, then we flipped the table and we said, okay, about you individually. And again, just specifically looking at students of color, we wanted to increase that data. Now, I have a caveat here. Hope Langston and I, when we're looking at the data, to be totally transparent, neither one of us could figure out where that 20% came from, and we worked really hard to try figuring it out. I'm sure we didn't make it up, but I want to say I'm not sure that's accurate, the baseline 20%. That being said, I am happy that our percentages again from the fall to the spring were increasing and growing as we went throughout the year, and we're trending in the right direction, which is to me the more important piece of that. We looked at a couple other areas when referring to equity. First was looking at extracurriculars, and actually last year's goals actually talked about enriched or honors classes. And really, after digging in, we just don't have many students. We're still keeping that in the mix, but really the better probably way of looking at this at a middle school level, because we don't have those as many higher level classes, is to look at our extracurriculars. And that includes, it's not just sports. We're talking like student council, we're talking about web, we're talking all the leadership groups, anything that students have to sign up to do. So as we look here, our demographically, we're at 24.1%. Students of color. And as you can see, we did not fare so well. And I have to freely admit that was an eye-opener to me. That looking at last year, we were only at the 12.9. We also looked at a little bit of referrals into the office, teacher referrals. It could be referrals that maybe Mr. O'Keefe and I had to address a behavior that we happened to witness. And we track all that either through Skyward and our internal office data. And as again, you can see, looking at students of color, we went the wrong direction. We want those numbers to be as low as possible, down to that 24% or hopefully even lower than that. Again, this one didn't surprise me as much as the previous one, but the how high they were was a surprise to me. But again, this is a baseline year. So whenever you're doing a baseline year, you can't be afraid to share the data. You have a starting point, you dig in, you say, okay, where do we go from here? So a few key reflections. First of all, students were clearly happy to be back in school. They were happy to be with their friends. They were happy to have a full lunchroom. They were happy to be activities. That was really evident. And I think the results kind of showed that. They liked being at school. Matter of fact, someone, when you talk to them, they said, I didn't realize I'd actually miss school. It was great for a week or two, but when it kind of went on, it's like, okay, time to go back. So they're excited to be there. The staff making a concerted effort to prioritize those connections and relationships with students made a huge difference. It made a difference in our students' experience at the middle school. They, like I said, they enjoyed showing up. They were engaged. They were happy just to be there. The conversations that you could have in the hallway with students was great and exciting for everyone. Now, the two next bullets, though, are things that maybe didn't see coming. The first one I did a little bit, but not the second one as much. But the students need to build back their endurance. And what I mean by that is what we saw is this big head of steam going into the school year was great, but it was tough to maintain it. The excited to be back at school was easy to maintain. It was the academic rigor. It was the, hey, trying to get things done. It was trying to stay engaged. And behaviors and kind of that assignment completion, you saw that wane really in March, and we typically would see that mid to late May. So it was considerably earlier. And if you ask them, they'll tell you, yeah, I know, I'm tired or whatever, which leads into the next one. The adults, myself included, also need to get back their in-person endurance. You kind of forget when you have 1,000 either students and adults in a building and you're always on show and you're always communicating and you're always, you're being positive, you're walking around, it's exhausting. And so it did. People powered through. I think we did a nice job. But I probably could retire early if I had $1 for every time someone said I'm tired. So that was something that, again, a takeaway that I had personally. The next one, middle school has work to do around equity. Clearly with the data I showed, we do. But again, it's a starting point. We're going to make a concerted effort to really invite students out specifically. We're going to take a look at similar to what we did AVID. So when we looked at students for AVID, we had an equity lens in that to make sure we were inviting students of color as part of that program. So as we look at different programs within our building, we need to really make an effort to make sure that we're reaching those goals or doing everything we can to reach those goals moving forward. And then the last one, middle school staff is ready to welcome AVID in their classrooms. I cannot tell you, hindsight's 2020. I should have invited everyone to some of our AVID PD that our teacher leaders did. We have a teacher leadership team that ran all the professional development for AVID last year. They had during PLCs once a month. They had 2 staff meetings a month that they walked staff through the key kind of strategies for AVID, which is called Wicker. And those strategies, teachers embraced it. The strategy that those leaders used is they presented it, they gave examples, and then they went and they said, we want you to try this in your classroom because the next time we return, we're going to talk about it. And people got really excited and motivated with it. We sent some people that had done some online training to the in-person training because we could actually do that again. And they got even more energized and came back. So they're planning already for this year. Our 6th grade writing teacher, Sarah Bloom, has taken on the tasks and she volunteered to be our building AVID site coordinator. So she and Michelle Bauer, who's the district site coordinator or AVID coordinator, they'll partner. And there's just some really good things. There's a lot of summer curriculum writing as well. The staff just said, nope, we're going to work on AVID. And you'll see we have a key building goal with that moving forward. So moving forward, so our goals for next year is by year 24-25, we want 100% of Northfield Middle School teachers to implement Avid Wickard strategies, and Wicker stands for writing, inquiry, collaboration, organization, and reading. So those are kind of the main strategies for Avid. A little refresher, kind of 101, 10,000-foot view. Avid is for all students. Getting that consistent language, getting consistency between grades and how you do things, how you teach reading, how they take notes. Those types of things will benefit all students. Our Avid cohort group of students naturally will get that, but they get kind of an added scoop and they get an added bonus. They start building leadership skills. They start talking about their future. So there's another level for those students, and it's an everyday class once a day for those students. And this year's, we have a group of 26 seventh graders, which will be our first cohort that'll go through. So that's pretty exciting as well. But our staff is going to really work on this during our PLCs, really as a cornerstone of working with that, partnering with our Avid leadership team. Another academic goal is that we want to make sure we're reducing our FRPFs, and we targeted second quarter, and that's for a reason. You target second quarter so that when you get your data, it's not too late for the year. So if you're seeing that, you can still say, okay, this isn't going so well. You don't have to wait till next year to start making a change. You can start doing that sooner rather than later. Now, the Avid strategies, this one, by the way, is also the kind of sunset, or the target goal is the year 2025, and that's intentional. So at 2025 is the year that we would at the middle school be fully implemented in Avid. So we have a cohort this year in 7th grade. The following year, we'll have a cohort that 7th grade moves to 8th grade. We have a new 7th grade group. The following year, which is that 2025 year, we would then be Avid building wide. So that's why that target date or year is there. And again, those strategies all should, and we are confident will help meet these goals. Another one we're gonna keep our 2 equity goals that we did not do real well at. You never want to end on a low note, and that's definitely a low note. So that was what we called our baseline year last year. So these next 2 slides, we just want to make progress. We want to be moving forward. I want to move the needle. I went back and forth. Do we throw a percentage in there? Do we not? I will throw a percentage in for next year. This year, I want to try some things and just see if we can move the needle. And then from there, a more realistic goal to move forward to, again, the ultimate goal is to get to that 24.1% or better, hopefully. Same with our referrals. We want to drop these numbers to get them below that 24.1%. So we want to continue to work on that. And then finally, as my elementary colleagues mentioned, we have an employee engagement goal here, and staff will receive, will receive feedback concerning areas of improvement on their performance at least once per semester. So, and I want to point out that at least is a key term. So as we're doing our evaluations, any tenured or non-tenured staff clearly are going to get many, many more than just the 1 per semester. So really this 1 per semester is for those people that aren't on cycle for an evaluation. So it's the other 60 staff members. And I'll even go a step farther, and I kind of thought about breaking it out. I'm not 100% sure I want to do this, but really when you're talking about staff members, this survey goes to not just licensed staff. It goes to our office assistants, it goes to our custodians, it goes to our educational assistants. So really making sure they are also receiving feedback is an important piece. And some of the reflection that I've done, some of those groups, I feel we've done a decent job giving feedback, even though the data didn't show it. And partially is because I don't think I do a good job letting them know they're getting feedback. You know, if you're walking in the hallway, hey, appreciate what you did. I think I have to be more intentional on how I do that. So that would be the final goal for this coming year. And with that, I will take questions.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Hey, board members, any questions or comments? Amy.
Thanks again for your presentation.
Oh, you're welcome.
And I have a couple questions. for
Sure.
you. So are the students required to respond to the survey that you, so I'm just wondering what the response rate is from the students to the initial questions that you,
Yep. So the students, we had a higher percentage of response rate early on. What we did is we targeted a classroom. So is it required? We want them to do it. We've embedded it into the class. So we do get a pretty high percentage, but I freely admit that by the end of the year, the last one we did, it was a little lower. It was a legit number and I don't have the number in front of me, so I apologize. But the number of respondents, I think, made it accurate data, but it wasn't at the percent that I would have liked to see because we had a actually a really high response rate early on.
okay, I was just curious, I think, how that process worked.
Yep.
My other question is about, do you ever examine that same data based on socioeconomic status? So basically the free and reduced price lunch, are they as satisfied with their teachers? You know, do they feel their teachers are as concerned about students, or are the teachers that's concerned about them? Have you looked at it sliced that way?
I didn't this time around. In previous years, when I look at data, quite often I do that. I didn't this partially because I wasn't quite so sure how that data would be accurate, because with the number are families that did not fill out their free and reduced lunch, that data is kind of pretty skewed. So that was concerning to me. So
We lost that with-
historically, I've done that. I did not do that for this time.
Okay, hey, that's good to know. And I was wondering, because I know COVID, a lot of people
Right.
didn't feel they needed to
Right.
fill
Yep.
that out. And then my last question is, have you ever tried to figure out what the cultural barriers might be for the students of color to participate in activities, or such as the one that comes to mind is they might be responsible for taking care of their younger siblings. So they have to get home and take care of the siblings in elementary school. And if that's the case, is there any way to have an activity that they could do over Zoom or, you know, something like that?
Yeah, great question. I am intrigued on the why behind that. I'm going to be interested to know moving forward if we see a positive shift in that strictly by being back in person for a second year. It's kind of one of those things, boy, I wish I would have done that. Prior to COVID, I wish I was tracking that data because I just feel that visually, again, I have no scientific data, but visually walking through our athletic events and seeing who's participating in different things, I feel like our percentages wouldn't have been as low as what they were. So I'm wondering, taking that break for a couple of years, what effect that had. Now, that being said, getting them back may be a challenge. And some of the things that you're referring to are going to be things we are going to have to monitor and make sure. And I'm hoping that if there is some of those barriers, we're going to find out by having just really candid conversations with students, having our school counselors talk to students. Hey, can I help you get signed up for this? Well, I can't. I have to babysit. That's how we're going to be able to find some of those things out. So I'm hopeful moving forward, because I do think that's a key piece, is finding out the why. Okay, why are they not coming out for those? And some of those activities, like the leadership ones, I think students would do it if they were invited. If they were actually, you said, hey, I want you to apply for this, I think you would get more students.
Well, thank you and for the report, and thank you for your engagement and your enthusiasm for your position.
Excellent.
And there were 591 middle school students who took the May student connectedness check-in. So that's well more than 50%. And when I look at the demographic data, it mirrors pretty closely the percentage of students based on their demographic survey areas.
Any other questions or comments?
Thanks for your report.
welcome.
And Amy had asked the questions I was going to ask, but you said 21 or 24.1% of the students are students of color. Yeah, I thought Northfield was like 85 to 90% not people of color. Is that number increasing over the years? Have you noticed?
I believe it is. I think Matt, you may have more current data, but I know every year when I ask, the impression I have is yes, we are increasing. Which I think is when we made the decision a few years ago to really focus on equity and make that as part of the district. I think that was a key piece at a really key time, because as those demographics change, hopefully we're giving our staff the tools to work with all students.
Any other questions or comments? Hey, Julie.
Thank you for your report and thank you for your leadership and your really keen understanding of middle school students and the way you're able to really get your staff to understand the challenges and I'll never forget walking into middle school with my daughter the first time and teachers saying, we actually want to teach at middle school. We're not just here, we actually want to be here. So I always recall that because most people when they hear of middle school think, oh my gosh. So anyway, thank you for that. And really exciting about Avid, right?
Yes.
A true game changer.
Yep.
And it's been so fun to watch over the course of your site improvement and continuous improvement plans, watching the acceleration of that program, the introduction and then the training and now being able to roll it out. It's really exciting. And I do believe will be a game changer.
Yep. I agree. And the teacher leaders that it's developing is been just super fun. Permanent smile on my face because it's one of those things that I should have realized was going to happen, but I didn't until it started to happen. And it's like, oh, this is really cool. This is good stuff.
That's really exciting. Thank you. And we'll look forward to pictures of Tetons.
Yes.
Yes. Anyone else? Greg, I had a couple of questions. On the activities, how many activities would you say the students have to choose from? Are these activities where there are fees they have to pay? Is there a need for private transportation after the activity? And one more, and are there caps to how many students can be in certain activities?
The only cap that we had that I can recall was we did have to cap our fitness center, and that was strictly a space and adult thing to keep things safe. But just for perspective, that was over 100 students. So that it's a lot of students that applied to that. The fee schedule, I think we have a fee schedule. We don't let fees be a problem. So that is everyone, in our student support staff, all of our coaches recognize, and they freely will come to typically Michael O'Keefe as the middle school athletic director and say, hey, I have a student that really would like to come out. Here's the problem. We problem solve. We want all students to come out. So I don't think fees are an issue. The transportation afterwards at times can be because there isn't an activity bus, but we've accessed that. We've done, I think, a decent job for those that we get to come out if it is a challenge. Our torch staff, middle school youth center does have a bus if we can kind of partner with that. We try connecting with another family that's on the team or activity to see if they can help with the ride piece. And in general, our families want their students to participate. So parents will go above and beyond to make it happen if it's at all possible.
Perfect. And then on the referral goal, decreasing the number of referrals, are you able to talk about what process you're going to use to see those referrals decrease?
The first and foremost is we are going to do one of the sessions during workshop is going to be a data review, and this will be a big part of it. So I believe our staff is going to be pretty shocked by the number of referrals and the data and how that plays out. So the first thing you have to do is you have to, one, own it, and two, you have to have knowledge of what's going on. So that's our first step. And then secondly, excuse me, with our restructuring of our MTSS program district-wide, that is going to help that. Now, that's not a magic wand to get those things in place, but really setting up system interventions ahead of time for all students, but specifically, I envision it affecting our students of color probably the most. That should help. And again, we have to keep building those tools with our staff and have them be comfortable. You can't have the same lens over and over again. What works for some students is not going to work for another student. And that doesn't mean the student can't be successful, whether it be behaviorally or academically. It just means we as educators have to adjust. And that's the biggest thing.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, well, thank you so much for being here today and your excellent report.
Thank you.
Have a great year.
Have a good evening.
All right, we're on to item C. Dr. Hillman, Director Murderstorff will provide us with an update on the planned voter survey.
Yes, so I just wanted to give the board an update as to where we are at with the development and execution of the voter survey. So we have signed the contract with Morris Leatherman. We do have a commitment from the city of Northfield to pay half of the survey cost. Right now, the survey is going to be of 400 voters. It will be a plus or minus, it'll be a margin of error of 4.8%. Which we think is pretty good. And then right now we're planning for 35 voter questions. And so we are looking at, we're working with some items we may need to consider. They're going to give me a quote on what it would cost to expand to 40 measures. We're going to try to fit it within the 35. But as we're working through some demographic questions and some other pieces, you heard Sal Bagley talk about sometimes up to 60 prompts that could be included in a survey. What Dr. Lifto from Morris Leatherman shared with me is that 40 is about the max that they think that they can keep people on the phone for. But we're being very judicious about making sure that we get the information that we need. I have worked with, I had a video conference with Dr. Lifto on Saturday morning. We have the initial version of the questions that I received. It was more of an approach that they've used with other districts in similar circumstances. I had shared within the executive summary that you had received of the multiple pathways that we potentially could use moving forward, pathway 1, pathway 2. That was the basis for the questions. I did the initial back and forth with him. I sent him my suggestions this afternoon. He's going to take my suggestions, work them into their format, and then I'm going to work with a very small group of administrative staff and Chair Gonzalez George to continue to refine that. Then we're going to ask a small subset of the board, 3 members, to be able to take a look at our very close to final survey to give any feedback before we execute it. So Dr. Lifto says it can take, he said in one district that he's working with in another state, they're on their 7th iteration. He doesn't believe it's going to take us that long, but his point is taking the time to make sure that you have the prompts that are going to give you the information that you're seeking is very important. So the largest amount of time in the 6 to 7 week process really is around the question development. I think we're in a very good spot based on the draft that I sent back to him this afternoon. So I do believe that we are on the right track. We do have some very good specific parts of the 2 pathways that we are able to test, plus some of those questions related to potentially shared facilities with the city. I also want to share with you that I've heard the board's concern with a potential February timeline of when we get the data back and the timeframe that you would have for making any decision to put something on the ballot in February. We did include in the packet tonight another reminder of the deadlines, not that you haven't memorized them by now because they've been in the packet so often. But as I've been reviewing and thinking about how we can work through that, my plan is going to be that Anita will be reaching out to you to look for a date for a work session. And the work session that I'm planning is to do a hypothetical set of tabletop exercises with you based on different ways that the data could return. By way of example, if the data were to return that both pathways have overwhelming support, if that was the case, and you're thinking that hypothetical circumstance, where would you stand if both pathway 1 and pathway 2 came back with substantial support? What happens if pathway 2 comes back with 52% of people saying they could support that, but pathway 1 with 57%? Does that change how? So we're going to do some hypotheticals so you have a chance to intellectually wrestle with some potential outcomes so that you can be thinking and deliberating when the data does come back. If it comes back this way, this may be how I feel. Not saying that you will, because the real data is the real data. I think it will be some time well spent for you to think about us giving you a handful of scenarios and then trying to determine if the data were to come back in that way, this is how I would consider suggesting the district moving ahead. So I'd like to potentially look at a work session. I'd like to hear from board members what they think about that. This is my response to your rightful concern about, unless we, push it off again, there is a timeline between the time that we get the data, and it's shorter than I think any of us would like. But this would give you a chance to really hypothetically wrestle, with some of the potential outcomes. So I'd like to know if people like that idea. If you think that's a foolish idea, I'm okay to hear that too. But if people have an interest, then we would seek to try to schedule a work session.
Any comments? Tom?
I like the idea of the work session. A question before the survey is initiated. Will the people in the community be maybe informed that you might get a phone call? Yeah, I mean, just so, we get a lot of phone calls.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am planning to share that in my first parent update in September, because we probably will most likely not be executing those phone calls until mid-September or maybe the second week. So I should be able to let people know with that first parent update. And then we will also use our vehicle of communicating through KYMN, the local newspaper, and other community groups to be able to share that information out, that if you get a call, it actually is from us.
Yeah, good question. Jeff, did you have a question?
Yeah, number one, I'm really not for special elections. I think it's only for extreme emergencies. And I just think if you're really gonna go after a resolution that's gonna raise people's taxes, that you should have those elections on the odd or even normal November. And I've asked that to many people. I know a lot of people feel that way. And as far as my thought early on, because we're kind of was trying to get consensus on things, but I guess I'll say this, but I think to go out to begin with, to ask for the first part of a bond, renovation bond for the first part of the high school would be fine to put that on the question for this election this time. Maybe this is when we get the resolutions, but do you have this resolution related to determining the necessity of renewing and expiring capital levy authorization, approving a new capital project authorization, and calling for a special election? So you asking for approval tonight on that in one question, when I think should be two questions?
It is two questions.
Okay. So, even if I probably have to vote no to that because I don't have enough information. I'm really not that interested. I'm really not for a special election in February. I've talked to some people on that, and they just said it sounds like kind of the sneaky fastball, and it's just not settling right, and it doesn't seem right at all. But you could obviously outvote me on that too, but I think that's a part of where you kind of try to go with are you doing the best things in the interest of the taxpayer? I really don't have any. I like to ask the taxpayer the question and have them. I don't really have any great outcome of what things should be one way or the other. I just think it's the right way to phrase the question. And I look at my seat as the taxpayer's seat, and I want to ask the right questions to them and let them make the decisions. Yeah, it'd be, great as time goes on. I think we'll end up, getting the high school to where it needs to be. And actually, just while I'm ranting here a little bit, really wasn't necessarily for that survey, but I do like the idea that we're going to split the costs with the city. And as things move on, and we can try to get some consensus of what we really need to have that high school site look for long-term, we really have to, to use our heads. And I just, not that we are, but I guess that's kind of some thoughts for now, but I think there's a lot of information there. Obviously, like Tom said, I'm for a special meeting, to talk more about that special. And but so just still a lot of issues there that I think that we kind of need to work out. And I guess that's my comment.
Thank you. You want to respond?
Just in the interest of clarity, the voter survey that we're talking about is not obviously for this November, right? We aren't going to be able to put something on the ballot for the high school this November. What we are proposing later in the agenda this evening, the renewal and then increase to the capital projects levy, is a 2-question. We'll get to that when we get to that point. We're proposing a 2-question set of ballot language. And I apologize sincerely if we didn't feel we had given enough. We've talked about it for several meetings, and I felt we had shared with it. So if there's additional information that we can provide tonight, certainly between Val and I'm confident we can provide any information that you might need to be able to make an informed decision. So I apologize for any lack of clarity around that.
Okay, Amy.
As I said in our last meeting, I really think that this is the biggest decision that I've faced on the board, and I'm really appreciative of the fact that you're out there willing to gather information with the survey and giving us more of a sense of the pulse of the community about the high school so we can make the right decision for our community at this time, whatever it may be. So that being said, I think a work session is a great idea because that way we can at least starting to hash out what some possibilities are and how we might move forward, whatever the outcome of the survey is.
Thank you. No.
I would support a work session. And secondly, Dr. Gilman, how are the phone numbers going to be chosen?
Yeah, so they use they have access to a database that allows them to call people who are within the Northfield School District. So one of the first questions to validate is they validate, are you a registered voter within the Northfield School District? Yes or no? So there are databases that these organizations are able to access of phone numbers that reside within the Northfield School District.
Well, the follow-up comment is that I have numerous friends who don't have a landline anymore. They have a cell phone and I don't necessarily have their phone number.
So it's interesting because that was a few years ago in that transition to landline to cell phone, that was a hurdle. But there have been, they now have the ability to be able to access those cell phone data, no different than any other organization that has access to mailing lists and things like that, or databases. So when I talk with Peter Leatherman, the owner of the company, I asked, what's your confidence level? We'll be able to get 400. He did not miss a beat. And he said, there is no question we can get you 400 voter responses. And the reason is, he says, if we are asking about local issues that impact people in their community, they are willing to talk to us. We'll have far more than 400 people who would be willing to talk to us. The moment we shift to state or national issues, people are no longer willing to talk to them. So this is a company that has done this work with dozens and dozens of, well, scores and scores of districts. They have significant confidence they'll be able to provide the 400 responses that they have promised.
Hey, Corey.
I'm good with the work session. I have a question as a follow-up to Noel's question about where the contact lists come from. Can you explain where the cell phones are pulled from?
I don't know the answer to that,
Okay.
Corey.
Do we have the ability to scrub our data and share only cell phone numbers? So as a parent of students,
Yes.
I've had the same cell phone number for 20 years, which is a Minneapolis-based number. So I don't know if they're being pulled based on geography or where the numbers originate. So I may not come up, but can we share district numbers if we scrub that data and allow for them to merge that with the other contact lists?
I would have to just take a look at a couple of things. I don't know the specific database that they get for their phone list. I will find that out and get that information to you. I did not ask that question. I just don't have, I'm not going to share with you a hypothetical or what I
Sure.
think.
And that's
So
okay.
the question is, do we have access to those, our own district parent cell phones? Absolutely. I just need to take a look at a few things to see, first of all, do they need that? They have not asked for that. The second part is, if so, I just need to look at a couple of items in terms of, I believe we're able to share that, but I just want to look at a couple of policy items.
And while I don't share any doubt that we can get 400 responses, I just want to make sure they're representative of the entire district. So
It is,
parents, not parents, elderly, single folks who are young, et cetera.
I've been assured that they will provide a stratified random sample.
And then concerning outreach, again, do you know if there's a set time that they reach out in terms of hours in the day? Is it
I-
9 to 5?
I don't know the answer to that, Corey, but I will get more details for you for the work session.
Because as we've discussed several times for other reasons at the board, a lot of people have different schedules these days, so. Thanks.
More comments, questions? Julie?
I would be supportive of a work session, and I'm really excited about pursuing this, and I think it will give us some really good information. Thank you.
Nice. Thank you. Feel good about that?
I feel great about that.
Okay, good. All right, we're going to move on then to our next item, which is an overview of the learning plan.
Yeah, so I just want to share with you to reiterate both to board members and to the community members that we do plan to use the e-learning strategy again this school year for the second and subsequent school days that may be disrupted, our transportation is disrupted due to weather. So we have an annual e-learning plan. We've been doing this for several years, as you know. Last year, we were very fortunate. We didn't have to use any of the days, but we are going to be prepared to use those days again this year. State law requires that we notify families before the beginning of the school year. You take care of that notification through the adoption of the school calendar. The school calendar clearly articulates that e-learning days will be used on the second and subsequent days that are disrupted due to weather. And so we will be doing some tweaking to the e-learning plan as we do every fall when staff comes back. One thing that I want board members to be aware of is that prior to COVID-19, if you remember, we didn't have one device for every kindergarten through second grade student, and third through fifth grade at the elementary levels did have their own devices. But at that time, we did not send those devices home. When the pandemic hit, we were able then to move kindergarten through second grade to where we have a one-to-one in kindergarten through second grade. So all elementary students have their own individualized device. Last year, we experimented with a variety of approaches to sending these devices home with students. And our elementary principals, who you heard here tonight, caring very much about student achievement and also stewardship, unanimously recommended that we do not send the devices home at all with the students this year, unless it's in specific circumstances. So just so you get, last year, if there was some concern for weather, I would call the elementary principals and they would send the devices home with the students. We didn't need to use that. And as we reflected upon it, we initially felt coming out of the pandemic, people would expect that. That is not what we really hear about expectations, because remember, e-learning is a bridge through a weather incident. It is not distance learning where we're using it for an extended period of time. So I just want board members and community aware, we're not going to be sending the iPads home with students. Overall this year, we're not going to make that special piece if we think that there's going to be weather. So we'll be redoing a few components of our e-learning day matrices. These are the activities that students in the elementaries do when they are working from home on those days interrupted by weather. So this is really just to remind you, yes, we're going to do the year learning plan again, explain just a couple of different updates. The middle school and high school plan will remain the same as what we had for last year, as well as the ALC. So I'd be happy to take any questions, but this is really just a public notification for you and for the folks watching that we are going to use e-learning again this year, and hopefully we don't have to use it again.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? All right, do you want to roll into the superintendent's operation?
You
and
got it.
strategic plan?
Absolutely. So really thrilled to share the first two items with you. I'm going to start with bridges to kindergarten. It's the second item there. Notice again that we're trying to align each of these small reports with the strategic commitments that we have identified in our strategic plan. So as mentioned during the elementary principal's presentation, we had 129 incoming kindergarten students participate in the Bridges to K program. And we've been using the Bridges to Kindergarten program for years. These students have an opportunity to go to their home school, to see the classrooms, not necessarily the classroom that they'll be in, but a classroom similar. They get to see their lunchroom, they get to see their playground, they get to learn some of those skills and routines that are important and help them have a boost to a positive beginning to their K-12 experience. And so this is run through community services. In the past, we'd run it for several weeks, but we've learned that we can do a morning group and an afternoon group. And so we are able to get small cohorts in all three buildings. So there's essentially 6 cohorts between the 3 buildings. And so we were so excited to be able to have that. And I had a chance to visit the Spring Creek Bridges to Kindergarten program, and just delightful to see those young people so excited to come to kindergarten. Then I just want to point out about fall athletics beginning. And again, so last Thursday, the 18th, was the back to school fall parent meeting. And I just want to tell you that there was one emotion I felt in that room, and it was pure joy. It was pure joy of it may be one of the most regular things that I remember attending in some time, and the hope of the upcoming season, as opposed to the feelings that we had about just uncertainty the past couple of falls. So I want to share with board members how amazing of a job that new activities director Bubba Sullivan and new high school principal Shane Byer did talking with families and athletes and what our coaches have done so far. It is truly outstanding. We are certainly not over where we've been, but we certainly feel like we're in the right direction. I do want to share also, just along with fall athletics, I think we've all seen the challenges, and frankly, let's just call it what it is. We've seen abhorrent behavior among spectators at high school athletics across the country. This is not anything that's just Minnesota related. We know that across the country, we have seen numerous news stories about spectators just not behaving appropriately at high school athletics. And we have to understand that the students watch the adults, right? So we're all in this together. Activities Director Bubba Sullivan has taken, I think, a very good step forward. He's identified student leaders who are going to be, have volunteered to be what are called bleacher captains. And the bleacher captains have pledged to lead student sections, our student sections that focus exclusively on cheering positively for our Northfield teams. When these student leaders spoke to a full gymnasium, they talked about that we're going to cheer for our team. We're never going to call out or individualize one player from either team. We aren't going to call out or individualize the referees. We know that this very contentious behavior that we've seen across the country, whether it is happening here or not, has led to less adults who are interested in coaching. We also known that it has led and fueled a mass exodus, and I don't use that word for drama because it is true, a mass exodus of people who are willing to referee athletics. It is to the point where last year and this year, you will see schools having to play football games on Saturday, where that was a rarity before, and moving of other events to where we're going to have a full slate of events almost every night because we just don't have enough officials so that they can all be there for volleyball on Tuesday and Thursday nights, if you will. So we need to control, we can control. Bleacher captains are a great way to start. They've pledged to lead students in positive cheers for the Raiders as opposed to against the opposing team or things about the referees. So we all need to work together. I expect that all of the adults who also attend Raider athletics follow this piece. We're not going to pretend that it's going to be perfect. We're not going to pretend that there may not be mistakes, but I do think that this is one of Mr. Sullivan's first actions as the activities director. And I think it's really a demonstration of the kind of leadership that he's going to be bringing to the activities department. Want to also point out that I'm going to come back. We have some new legislation around student data privacy and kindergarten screen time limitations. These are two items that the legislature did get done. And so in my narrative, I share with you that, we are required to notify families about third-party digital tools that could contain private student data. Director of Technology Services, Nate Knutson, has been working with technology directors from across the state. He has a draft spreadsheet that we're just about ready to publish that will list all of the different third-party tools that we use, gives a link to their privacy policy, shows the icon, and those kinds of things. So we'll be in compliance with that law. And also the kindergarten screen time, preschool and kindergarten screen time legislation. It does not include time limits. It does allow continued individual use of screens to practice concepts introduced by the teacher or directly related to learning standards. The bottom line is the intent of this new legislation is leveraging research about making sure that we're not just giving young children a device without an academic perspective. And so we have already notified our teachers who are impacted by this, and we'll continue to work with them on it. Also wanted to point out the work that we are planning to do this year. Again, as you've heard with our school improvement plans, every school improvement plan has an anti-racism goal. And again, our goal is that every student is prepared for lifelong success. And I've included our anti-racism framework again. We've worked quite a bit on symbolism because symbolism matters. Needing to see yourself in the curriculum, needing to see yourself in the materials that are presented at your school. Also making sure that we're sensitive to symbolism that may raise concerns about past injustices, being thoughtful about those things, individualized behavior, making sure that we truly are treating other people well, right? It's about all of our collective individual behaviors beget systems behavior. Our focus will continue on those items, but we're really been moving to systems behavior. And what we're looking at are using tools like the Minnesota Department of Education's Equity Magnifier tool as a discussion guide. It's very simple questions that when we're considering policy, when we're considering procedure, or other items that we just ask, are we making sure that all voices have been at the table and that all perspectives have been made sure to have an opportunity to be part of that discussion prior to decision making? We're also looking at tools like the Equitable Classroom Practices Observation Checklist. This is adapted from a material that we used in some of our training last year. It does very simple things like saying, did you greet every student at the door by name and make sure that you pronounce their name correctly? You think, well, geez, that's not rocket science, Matt. The research behind that is unequivocal. 40%, another study from Vanderbilt University this summer shared that 40% additional student engagement simply by greeting students by their name at the door. That is an equitable practice, making everyone feel valued and saying their name appropriately. It sounds so simple, but there's no professional development needed, right? There's just a commitment to making sure. So those are the kinds of things that are included, making sure that when you're facilitating a classroom discussion, have you ensured that everyone has had an opportunity to participate? Are you using strategies that help bring people to the table to share their perspective as opposed to freezing them out, if you will? So those are the kinds of things that we'll be working on through that this year, embedded within our PLC work and additional training as needed, because PLC, professional learning communities, are equity work, and equity work is the foundation and it's integrated in our PLC work. Then finally, I am required to share with you some information about COVID, not because we have significant concerns, but because federal rule requires that we update our COVID-19 safety plans every 6 months to receive ongoing ESSER 3 funding. And so our COVID-19 plan is far different than what we talked about a year ago, and I could not be more thrilled to see that we have very minimal mitigation strategies in place. In the packet, I have linked to our COVID-19 website. We did update the procedures on Thursday. We updated them with the latest Spanish translation today. As people look at this, any feedback can be provided to me directly, but essentially we're very close to what I would call pre-COVID kinds of mitigation strategies. So obviously masks are optional for students. Students and staff can choose to wear them if that helps them and makes them feel more comfortable. We're not requiring testing like we once did, but we're strongly encouraging testing for any student who has influenza or COVID-like symptoms. We will not be running the Q testing center this year, but we do have a fairly large inventory of at-home rapid tests that we will continue to provide to families for free as long as supplies are available. We have not heard from the state if we'll be getting another round of supplies from them, but we will certainly allow people to take those tests as long as they are available. I think the real key mitigation strategy, we're just asking people to make sure that they stay home if they're sick, right? That's something we've all learned. If you're not feeling well, stay home. And if you do test positive for COVID-19, students should stay home for 5 days from symptom onset or from the test date if they don't have symptoms. And they should stay home until their symptoms have improved or are beginning to resolve. So again, people can view those very simple mitigation procedures, a far shorter report on this than we had to give in previous years. And once again, I just want to thank the board. I want to thank our staff, our students, our families, and our community, for their engagement in these difficult things that we've had to discuss related to the pandemic over the past couple of years. I am proud of how we're coming out of it together. It doesn't mean that it wasn't hard or there weren't challenges or disagreements, but in many of my emails that I sent to families, I asked them or shared with them that I really wanted us to be able to come out of this and be proud of how we handle it as a community. And I am proud of how we've handled it as a community. And I'm proud that we're moving forward from this difficult time in our history and we're moving forward together. So that is the report for this evening.
Thank you. Yeah, that was so intense and labor intense, and glad that we're through a lot of that. Any questions or comments from the board? Okay.
I had
Okay, Julie.
I have a
Okay.
quick question. So Bridges to Kindergarten, that's great. And it seems like it's expanded to where anyone who wishes to do it, and prior it was more based on
Recommendation.
Recommendation, exactly. So it's great that it's just for anyone who wants to do that. Really awesome.
we've really worked hard on, and I really want to compliment Erin Bailey and her staff, who have worked really hard to expand access to bridges to kindergarten. This is an equity strategy to make sure that anyone who wants or needs this has that opportunity. And so we're very pleased to offer these students the opportunity to be able to get a jump start, if you will, on their kindergarten year. Everybody wins.
Great report. Thank you.
Perfect. More comments, questions? Okay, then we will move on. We have an item that came from the table file.
So I believe Cheryl Hall is still here.
Hi, Cheryl, welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for my opportunity to speak with you this evening about this request. Kind of a new one that has come forward because of one, an opportunity, and two, because of a need. As I stated in my review of the request, I'm asking for a 0.5 school psychometrist. You will find that with the lack of school psychologists available to school districts, there are a few more school districts that will hire school psychometrists to do part of the work. They cannot fully take the place of a school psychologist, but they can do some of the work. They are trained. They either have a bachelor's degree in psychology and or a master's degree in school psychology. And that allows them, and the training, they've been provided the training to be able to do evaluations. They're familiar with the evaluation tools that we use, do observations, assist staff with some planning and interventions. But they cannot work as a licensed school psychologist yet. They are in school to become a licensed school psychologist many times, maybe working toward that and looking for a position where they can gain more experience. As you know, we had a late resignation of a school psychologist this summer during the summer months, which doesn't put us in a position to really have a good pool of candidates. It's not a good pool anyways, no matter what time of the year you're looking for a school psychologist, but it really puts us at a disadvantage in the middle of the summer. Because of that, I moved forward with contracting. We did post the position. We had 0 applicants. We did decide to go forward with contracting for a school psychologist to fill the position for the 22-23 school year. We moved on that quickly because even contracting for a position like this is becoming more difficult because there just aren't enough school psychologists across the nation, not only in the state of Minnesota. So with that, we decided to interview some school psychologists and hoping to get a school psychologist that even under contract would be willing to come into our school setting. I was not able to find one single school psychologist willing to come in person. So we have a virtual school psychologist that is contracted. She has experience. She's out of state, but she has experience in the state of Minnesota, which I'm very happy for, that we have some experience and knowledge about our criteria and how we identify students and how we serve students here in the state of Minnesota. With that are some challenges. Our opening happens to be at early childhood and at our ALC. ALC is less concerning than it is at early childhood. We could move staff around, disrupting where other school psychologists are and create another issue. We decided to continue to move forward with planning to have the virtual school psychologist at our early childhood center. They have a workstation that they provide us as a hands-on screen. It really sounds like, for the most part, it will probably work well. We do know that additional staff support is going to be needed with our youngest children to go through that evaluation process and to have someone in person. Our teachers can't leave their teaching in order to go and do those things. And we can move staff around a little bit. Our educational assistants can be trained to do some of that. The school psychometrist, however, could help with that process and is trained and could even help with the observations. Can you imagine a virtual school psychologist trying to do an observation that's required in our evaluation process, in classrooms, in our community, in our family homes where our early childhood children are, trying to complete those observations? I think a school psychometrist gives us probably the opportunity to have more validity to those observations and helping to gather some of that data, as well as being someone that can help the children in those situations who are being tested, our youngest children who are being evaluated. So that's a piece of the puzzle that we have. Also, this summer, we realized that we are probably going to have another school psychologist opening, or at least a temporary opening, a needing of a long-term sub, because we have someone that's going to be going out on leave, most likely in January. We don't know for how long. And given that we need to hire another school psychologist, knowing that that's probably not going to happen, and because we also know that we could be in the same situation of having someone virtual, I feel that this school psychometrist could then move into that opening during this leave of absence, no matter how long it is, and provide the necessary in-person services and do a good portion of that work, and have the oversight of either the online school psychologists that we're already contracting with for the year, or one of our in-person school psychologists taking on a little extra to help with that supervision and do that piece, and do the pieces that the psychometrist is not licensed to do. So it provides us an opportunity to problem solve a few things. And it also, I think, gives us an opportunity to look at, if we're moving in a new direction with school psychology and the number of school psychologists that are available, it might give us an opportunity to take a look at, what does school psychometrist position look like in our district? Is there more that we could do over time and move into a different model if that was necessary to work with school psychometrists? So you might ask the question, so are there school psychometrists available? Are they even out there? Well, this came about because we interviewed someone who happens to be qualified as a school psychometrist, who is interested in maybe a different position, but was really looking to do something. It also allows us to think about a grow your own kind of program that maybe later on, if this individual works in our district and comes to really enjoy working in our district, which we know a lot of people do, that we could hopefully, once the individual was finished with their program, that we could then hire them back into an open school psychologist position if we had one at the time. We will continue to seek someone next year as a school psychologist for this open position that we're contracting with right now. And hopefully we'll be able to fill it. But if we're not, we're starting to put those things in pieces in place that maybe help us build toward having staff that are licensed and be able to provide this service. Kind of a complex piece, always trying to solve problems with the best outcome possible for our students and our staff and our district as a whole. As you see, the cost of the salary and benefits is about a little over $50,000, with about approximately 55% of just the salary portion. That would be the net cost of $33,348. What's a little bit more information is that we can offset that cost because we did not fill 0.5 of a school occupational therapist, because we had a late resignation there as well. We had someone that could take over a portion of that job, and we feel like moving forward that we may not need that 0.5. And I wanted to see how the school year gets going and our OT needs and some readjustment there that we think will occur. And that really that 0.5 then is almost a wash between the two, the cost of a OT and the cost of a school psychologist or a psychometrist. And then we have some unfilled educational assistant vacancies that we have not filled yet. We can utilize some of those funds temporarily for this if we can't fill those. And it helps us meet an educational assistant need for the other 0.5 of the position. So we'd have someone that would be willing to come in possibly 0.5 as a educational assistant and to meet some needs of some students that we didn't know maybe were coming into the district. We are constantly having changes in our student populations over the summer with quite a few students that are looking to open enroll into the district with pretty significant needs, or they've maybe moved into the area and are asking to open enroll into the district from our neighboring communities. And we don't have the educational assistants or some of the programs to actually meet these needs. So this person is highly trained, could then fulfill some great needs that we didn't know we might have for this fall. Any questions?
Thank you, Cheryl. Board members, questions, comments? Amy?
I just wanted to thank you for your creative problem-solving skills.
You're welcome.
And I know that you said we don't have to vote on it today, but I always seem to be offering, because I realize that school is starting before our next meeting and you need to get people in place. So I assume it would be helpful to have this voted on earlier or not?
Actually, in this case, yes, I would agree with you because in this case, we know we have a candidate out there that is willing to, a quality candidate that's willing to be in a position like this. If something else hasn't come up, we would continue to search for someone that's qualified for this position. But I think we have an opportunity.
So I would like to make a motion that we approve this request and put that motion on the items for individual action.
Is there a
Okay.
second? Julie? Okay, so we will put that in the items for action later tonight.
Need to be able to vote on it here.
Okay.
And people to vote to move it.
Okay, all those in favor of adding this to the items for individual action later tonight, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes.
I greatly appreciate your support and listening to our situation.
Thank you, Cheryl. Very difficult situation. Appreciate you. Oh, yes, Julie. I'm sorry, Cheryl. I think Julie had a question for you.
Sure, I just wanted to make two comments and I just wanted to agree and really bolster the comments that Amy made. I mean, just incredible problem solving. And I just appreciate the work that you have done to come up with this solution and the vision you have for how this could play out and really benefit us. So thank you. And then I also have to make the comment that the second most excited person about COVID mitigation strategies for the coming school year would be you. Anytime you're before us, we have to acknowledge the incredible work you did as our district COVID coordinator. And I can't imagine that you are not just excited every single day to get out of bed this school year. And no, you don't have to do that work. So we just always have to acknowledge that work that you did and thank you. And we know lots of challenges ahead of you, obviously, in student services and the number of challenges you have both from staffing and serving students and their families, but we think it will compare favorably to the prior school year. We hope it will compare favorably.
Thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
comments. It's a great honor. It's a great honor to serve this district. Thank you.
Okay, we are on item 6, the consent agenda. We'll now move on to the approval of the consent grouping. As a reminder, there were some personnel items in the table file added to the consent grouping. Is there anything anyone would like to pull from the consent grouping for separate consideration? No. Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent grouping? Moved by Noel, second by Tom. Thank you. All those in favor of approving the consent grouping, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. And now we're on items for individual action. And we have 4 items for action and 1 resolution, which Anita will facilitate. First, we have policy committee recommendations. I'll take a motion and then we can discuss. Is there a motion to approve the policies 203, 414, 428, and 502? Moved by Amy, second by Corey. Thank you. All right, any comments ahead of the discussion, Dr. Hellman?
No, I think that we presented and had some discussion at the last meeting, so certainly we could take any questions, but nothing new to add.
Board members, any questions or comments on any of the policies? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next, we have the superintendent's focus areas. Is there a motion to approve the proposed focus areas for the 2022-2023 school year? Moved by Corey, second by Amy. Okay, any comments?
No, they have not changed since the last time, and I did not receive substantial feedback on them, so I would submit them for approval.
Right. Okay, any board members, any comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. The next item is the adult lunch price. I'll take a motion and then we can discuss. Is there a motion to approve the adult lunch prices increase from $4.50 to $4.95 to align with USDA requirements for the 2022-23 school year? Moved by Julie, second by Tom. Thank you. Okay, Dr. Hillman, any comments on that?
I just want to explain for people watching, as you know, we approved the adult lunch prices as part of the child nutrition budget process. In an unusual circumstance this year, the USDA, the Department of Agriculture, who has the regulatory authority over school lunch programs, came out with their minimal price at $4.95 after you had approved $4.50. We're required to be at that baseline of what the USDA is. And we still don't have guidance if we could have just moved forward with it without your approval, but because the school year is coming up, we determined we'd ask you for your approval just to make sure that we are able to move forward with it and not have to wait for additional guidance on the topic.
Board members, any questions or comments on the lunch price? Tom, you had a question? No? Okay. All right. I don't see any more discussion, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. We're on to the resolution. And we will. Okay, I'm going to take a motion and then we can discuss it. And once we're ready to vote, if you'd like, I can read the resolution as it is lengthy. And there are 2 pieces to it, as we were talking about earlier. The first piece has to do with the capital projects levy, and that will go on the November ballot.
And
And the second piece is authorizing for an election in February.
no, just so actually it's both about the election in November. The first portion is authorizing the renewal of the existing capital projects levy at the same tax rate. So the tax rate that was approved in 2011 is 3.534% times the net tax capacities. That's the first question in November, just renewing that. Then the second question is increasing that authority by 1.169%. So this resolution right now is only authorizing the November election.
Okay.
Question.
Okay, I'm going to take a motion and then we can discuss. Is there a motion to approve resolution relating to determining the necessity of renewing an expiring capital projects levy authorization, approving a new capital projects levy authorization, and calling a special election and referendum thereon? Moved by Tom. Need a second? Julie. Okay, so Dr. Himmel, do you want to make any further comments? Otherwise, I'll open it to questions.
I think Val, do you want to make any comments? I think because it's even though it's on a general election date, we need to call it a special
I
election.
think that's a
That's,
confusion.
that's a good point. So thank you for bringing that up. Do you want to comment on that, Val?
No, I was just gonna say it's because of the taxing authority that we are, that it's a special election, not that it's on a separate date. It's on the general election. It's just special because we are the school district.
Is Jeff?
So for clarification, that's not an actual, so why are they using the term special
Right.
election?
Because that's the required language.
But it's on November.
It is
8th,
on November
so-
8th.
So yes vote would be agreeing to that on November.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I apologize for the confusion on that. It's that there are some specific terminologies that we're required to include in these, and even though it's on the general election date, this one is required to be called a special election.
And that's the capital levy we talk about from going from what, 750 to
1.6
1.6.
yeah.
Okay.
Yep, good clarification. Any further comments or questions about this item? No? Okay. We're good then. All right. We have a motion and a second. Do members wish me to read the resolution again? You need to hear it again.
They should read, go ahead and read it.
You want me to read it, Jeff? Okay. Motion to approve resolution relating to determining the necessity of renewing an expiring capital projects levy authorization, approving a new capital project levy authorization, and calling a special election and referendum thereon. Anita, will you facilitate the call?
Broniak,
Aye.
Butler,
Aye.
Gurwitz,
Aye.
Gonzalez, George,
Aye.
Pritchard,
Aye.
Cornell,
Aye.
Stratmon,
Aye.
Very good. Resolution passes. Thank you, Anita.
And if I can just mention, we have already started, obviously, to talk a little bit about the capital projects levy renewal and expansion. We've shared it already with parents through our last referendum update, but as you know, veterans of this know that we will be launching information on our website yet later this week. We already have time scheduled during the state of the school district address to the Chamber of Commerce. We already have a Rotary Club presentation. We'll be working to get information to PTOs and other groups. Again, the school district can simply provide factual information about what would the levy do for us. And just to reiterate for folks watching, this is it's the dollars that we are able to use to maintain and improve our buildings and our grounds, to purchase materials and equipment for staff and students, and then to be able to also provide in one segment, one key component of this is that there are 5 technology staff members whose salary and benefits are eligible to be paid for from the capital projects levy. We would move those salary and benefits all from the general fund into this capital projects levy fund. And that would relieve the general fund of around $500,000 worth of salary and benefits. And it's not going to prevent, but it will minimize the amount of future budget reductions that we have to do. So it is about maintaining and improving buildings and grounds. It's about purchasing and maintaining equipment and supplies that help our staff and our students engage in the educational environment, taking care of all of you can buy books to snowplows, to technology, to all of those kinds of things. And then this one narrow group of employees whose salary and benefits can be paid for this, that is going to be a real help to our general fund. So it is as we've shared before, comparatively, it's a fairly modest increase to the average property taxpayer. We'll be sharing additional information about that with people in the coming weeks. We're not required to publish a tax impact, which it's the one time we're not required to publish a tax impact statement. We, of course, will anyway. So I appreciate the board's unanimous support in this. And we just want to make sure that the community, if you're just tuning in for the first time, we want you to know what's coming up here. Thank you.
All right. All right, our final item is a request from Cheryl Hall, Director of Special Services, requesting to hire a 0.5 FTE school psychometrist for the 2022-23 school year. Is there a motion? Wait, we already had a motion, right? No, now we're done. Take a motion to hire the 0.5 FTE. Okay, moved by Noel, second by Corey. Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Very good. All right, item 8. Yes.
It was done all in one resolution. So you approved both questions on the ballot through the one resolution. Yep, thank you for that. Yep. That is complicated, isn't it, right? Where it's one of the few where you got it.
Good, thank you. All right, item 8 is items for information. The staff breakfast and program is August 29th from 7 to 10 at the middle school, and the board is invited. Future meetings are Monday, September 12th, September 26th, and October 10th, 2022, 6 p.m. in the district office boardroom. That is all the business that we have for tonight. Is there a motion to adjourn? Okay, moved by Noel, second by Jeff. Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
I.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. We are adjourned.